Selamat siang semuanya.
Selamat siang.
Okay, so I guess we can now formally begin. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar titled Strategic Changes in Language Education during and post-COVID-19, brought to you by the University of Santo Tomas and Widya Mandala Surabaya Catholic University. I am Chris Fontanilla.
And I am Criza May Balisong, and we are your moderators for today. Before we formally begin, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the deans and directors and the heads of study program of English Studies and English Education of UST and WMSCU respectively. Of course, we also welcome our distinguished speakers who are here to share with us their knowledge and expertise.
Lastly, greetings to our participants from the different parts of the world. We say hello to our participants from Indonesia and Philippines. And we also have participants coming from Spain, Vietnam, Mongolia, Thailand, India, Laos, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. We are very happy to be with you all today.
And we know that we are very much excited to hear and learn from our speakers. So to avoid distractions while the webinar is ongoing, please be guided by the following house rules. First, please mute your microphones and keep your cameras off during the lectures. Second, this Zoom session is recorded and is streamed via the UST Department of English Facebook page and in our YouTube channel. In compliance with all existing laws, your continued attendance or participation is deemed your agreement to the recording and to the streaming. Third, we will allow you to participate in the Q&A session later, but please maintain proper decorum when you post your questions in the chat box. And lastly, certificates of participation will be given to participants who will answer the questionnaire or evaluation form, which will be posted in the chat box at the end of the webinar.
Without much ado, let us formally begin this afternoon's webinar session with an opening prayer by the AB Chorale, followed by the national anthems of Indonesia and the Philippines, the Indonesia Raya, and the Lutang Tumira.
Lord, make me an instrument of your peace.
Doveci odio, lasciano seminare amore.
Where there is hatred, let me sow love.
Dove ci è ferito, perdona. Dove ci è
where there is despair, where there is darkness, light, where there is sadness, joy. Understood as to understand. dagat at bundok sa simoyang sa langit mamangha. May dilagang tulya at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagniningning. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pag may di mabibiling. Lupa ng araw na wala pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pag may mag-aapi, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
All right. So regarding our Facebook live streaming, because of account restrictions, our live streaming for this afternoon will not push through. However, the recorded session will be posted in the UST Department of English Facebook page later on. At this juncture, we would like to inform everyone that this webinar is divided into two parts. The first part focuses on strategies, assessment, and instructional leadership and shall be delivered by our Indonesian speakers from Widya Mandala, Surabaya Catholic University, while the second part, which will be discussed by our speakers from University of Santo Tomas, focuses on engagement tasks during synchronous and asynchronous sessions. The question and answer segment will be conducted after each part of the webinar. Now, to formally welcome us in this event, may I yield the virtual floor to the Dean of the UST Graduate School, Dr. Michael Anthony Vasco, followed by the Director of Graduate School of WMSCU, Dr. Ami Suwandi, for the opening remarks.
Good afternoon to all the participants, the organizers, and our speakers. Language plays a central role in communication. It is through language that we can effectively articulate our thoughts, messages, academic discourses, artistic and scientific narratives, cultural, historical, political, economic, and even religious views. Without language, all these narratives would be impossible to achieve. Hence, we cannot simply take language for granted. Rather, we should appreciate and reevaluate the vital role it plays in our society, especially in times where public information and dissemination matters the most, such as in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. Health instructions, news bulletins, health advisories, updates from government institutions must be well communicated through the efficient use of language. Aside from the use of the standard lingua franca, communication through the vernacular language of the various regions will prove effective to convey messages to be more understandable to the public. I recall one of the pitfalls of our own civil defense in the Philippines during the super typhoon Haiyan in 2015 was the technical difficulty among the peoples in understanding the English term storm surge. Practically, the masses did not understand what storm surge is all about. And because of misinterpretation, people were not able to prepare and flee from the imminent danger, only to find out that it means something else, something that is truly dangerous. But the technical term was not that intelligible to the common people, thus resulting to many lives wasted simply because of a misunderstanding and a misappropriation of language. That is how important language is in public communication and information dissemination. It is in this light that I welcome all of you in this afternoon's webinar. May the academic exchanges be fruitful, and I would like to congratulate in advance the organizers, the speakers, and the participants for this academic exercise. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Dean Vasco, for highlighting the importance of language and for welcoming everyone. May we also listen to Dr. Ami Sawandi, the Director of Graduate School of WMSCU, for her message.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, on behalf of Vidya Mandala Catholic University, Surabaya, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and high appreciation on this important event webinar. The Honorable of Professor Dr. Michael Anthony Vasco, PhD, the Dean of the Graduate School of the University of Santo Tomas, Rachel Tao, PhD, the head of the English Study Program of the Graduate School of the University of Santo Tomas, and Dr. Hendra Teja Suksmana, head of the Master Program in English Education of Vidya Mandala Surabaya Catholic University, distinguished speakers, the dearest participants who come from Indonesia, Philippines, Spain, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Laos, Mongolia, Thailand, and Vietnam, and ladies and gentlemen. Admitting the unprecedented challenge arising from the convergent impact of pandemic, the academic cooperation between universities is very necessary to exchange ideas in solving the problem in education, especially in teaching learning process. The webinar is jointly organized by the Graduate School of Vidya Mandala Surabaya Catholic University and the Graduate School of University of Santo Tomas, the Philippines. Is the realization of the MOU between our two institutions. The main purpose of holding this webinar is that the speaker of the two institutions would like to share knowledge and experience to the participant of what the speaker do during the pandemic, and they would be beneficial to our students even after the pandemic. We are also inviting the participant to share their teaching experience so that this webinar will be very rich with ID and can bring all the fruitful ID to our class. This pandemic should not lessen the quality of the teaching learning activity. I'm positive that there are new ideas to get, and I encourage the participants to take part in the discussion. And I look forward uh, to the other fruitful implementation of the cooperation and also the expansion of this program into other collaborative programs such as a joint research activity. Finally, once again, on behalf of Vidya Mandala University, I full-heartedly appreciate and thank you of you who are willing to attend this important event. Thank you very much, and thank you for your kind attention. Good afternoon.
We just heard Dr. Ami on his welcome message. Once again, thank you, Dr. Michael Anthony Vasco and Dr. Ami Tumandi, for the warm welcome. Your messages have made us even more excited with what our speakers have in store for us. And speaking of speakers, without further ado, it is my pleasure and it's an honor to introduce our speakers for this afternoon. Our first speaker was born in Surabaya, Indonesia. He took up his bachelor's degree in engineering in Petra Christian University, and later on, he finished his master's degree at the University of Canterbury, New Zealand, and earned his doctorate degree in the same university. He used to be a lecturer, head of research and development, vice rector for research, development and cooperation, and vice rector for academic affairs at Petra Christian University. He is also a senior lecturer, part-timer at Master's English Language Education Program at William Mindana Catholic University since 2009, and educational leadership and educational administration courses. His training includes Hagai International Leadership Institute at Singapore and blended learning at the University of the Nations, Hawaii, USA, and many more. In 2009, he founded the School Leadership Development Program with blended learning and has been very active in community surveys such as private school consultative bodies. Lastly, he has been invited as a speaker in several conferences and seminars, particularly in the field of education. While the COVID-19 pandemic has been affecting the learning processes in all levels of education institutions worldwide, our first speaker will discuss how instructional leaders need to be more resilient and innovative with growth mindsets to find breakthroughs in order to guarantee the availability of more flexible learning modes for their digital generation students and how to prepare them to be successful global contributors. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our first speaker, Dr. Joaquin Andriono.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor to share my thoughts and experiences and to share screen. All right. The first session will be on strategic changes in instructional leadership beyond the pandemic. We are all very optimistic, and yet we need to be always realistic. So in this case, let me share with you some thoughts. First of all, allow me to use this definition as our platform together so that we can move further on discussing about instructional leadership. I use this definition by Reed Wood and his friends. Instructional leadership is an approach used by school leaders, including in the tertiary education level, to focus on teachers or lecturers' behavior in certain activities which indirectly impacts students' academic achievement. Now we know that if I use this model, this is a quote unquote business model, but it also applies on our school and also our universities. Somehow we know that here our customer, as we can see, as students and perhaps also their parents, we are now serving the generation of C generation and Alpha generation. And their parents probably X or Y. So we know that they are also struggling to be prepared for facing the future. This is totally different with their older generation. And during this pandemic, we know somehow the channel of our delivery is disrupted. We have to adjust ourselves so that we can still deliver our education or learning processes to our students without too much disruption. And also the customer relationship, we need also to adjust so that we can have the right value proposition of our educational institution, which determined strongly by our key activities and our key resources, which means teachers and also lecturers. Well, ladies and gentlemen, these are the challenges needs to be faced by our graduates in the near future. And even now, they have to face all the development of this technology, which affects our lives, which affects of the community. Artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, robotics, and so on. Okay, now for a long time, we are in our comfort zone with the face-to-face interactions at the same place where teachers and students meet in the lecture rooms. We can discuss freely, and from time to time, maybe we can have some public display, but still at the same place, we can communicate with each other with ease. But now as the pandemic comes and disrupt us, somehow we have to change our face-to-face interactions to remote interactions, meaning that we communicate from different places. And this is the right time to rethink how we deliver our courses. We have to combine with from the point of view of the asynchronous and synchronous delivery modes. Now, the question is, when it's safe to go back to normal? As we can read from this news or this article, experts are of two minds. On the one hand, they predict that things are heading in the right direction. Of course, all of us hope and pray that negative outcomes from COVID-19 are falling and the vaccine rollout is steadily improving. But on the other hand, we also know that there is the same story we have heard since the beginning of the pandemic. If the country eases up too quickly, especially as variants of the virus circulate, there's still plenty of room for yet another surge in cases and deaths. Oh, now this is our challenge as teachers. We have teachers, we have lecturers, and their commitments are various. Some of them are resistant, reluctant, existent, compliant, but some of them are very promising. They are committed and compelled. Of course, at least all of us hope that our lecturers or our teachers are formally compliant to this new situation, the new regulation, our policies, they will follow. But of course, we hope that more than just to comply, they would like to make themselves committed and even compelled, meaning that they have self-motivation and their attitude is no matter what, find a way to reach our goal together. This is the most paramount is for the students' learning, the student success to reach their future. Now, I would like to use this research done by Blair Shepherd in his book, 10 Years to Midnight. By the way, Blair Shepherd is a senior from PwC, Price Waterhouse and Coopers. And based on his research, there are 4 crises, and one of them are the crisis of leadership. And I just select 3 of the paradoxes of leadership, which I think it's very relevant in our case. The first one is tech-savvy humanist, meaning that even we come from a different generation, but somehow we need to pay attention. We need to be self-motivated to learn about the coming of this or the development of this new technology. We need to use and understand how the technology will drive the future success. This also gives a good example or a role model for our teachers and lecturers. But at the same time, we need to be humanist, understand and care about our people and our organizations and how they function, as well as human effectiveness in systems and situations. So this is just 2 sides of a coin. The second paradox, which is number 4, according to Blair, is humble hero. Humble means servant leadership, foster resilience in self and others, which is very important. We cannot just to give instructions to let people to be resilient, but we have to be with them. We have to encourage them. We have to give model to them. And hero at the same time, meaning that in times of uncertainty, we need to exude confidence with gravitas. So this is another side of a coin. And the paradox number 5, which is our third paradox, is tradition innovator, meaning that in one side, we need to keep our values, our vision, mission. We connect deeply with the purpose of our universities or our schools, especially the original ideas that serve as its foundation. Of course, this is very important and we have to keep it. We have to make it still relevant even today and in the future, and bring these values really become part of our lives. But at the same time, we need to become innovators, meaning driving innovations, try new things, and have the courage to fail. This is very important, because if we don't allow ourselves or others to fail and improve uh, the situation or the condition or the failure, we cannot do anything in the realm of innovation. So we have to allow others to do so. And these three paradoxes should be used as a foundation of our leadership. Because according to Insight Higher Education, Teaching and Learning after COVID-19, there are three predictions. Number one, blended learning will dramatically increase. So we need to be ready with this. Now, prediction number two, online education will be a strategic priority at every situation. Because of this pandemic, we are very fortunate in a sense that we can live together from so many different countries without traveling. So there is an opportunity for our universities to serve globally with blended learning. And prediction number three, which I would like to address in a few minutes, existing and potential OPM, online program management partnerships, will be or must be resolved. Okay, so let me explain a little bit of online program management. Lately, it becomes popular even before the pandemic. It's a kind of growing segment of service providers that work with colleges and universities globally to offer uh, or to serve the universities with new academic programs online. So OPM providers offer a suite of services either as a package or on a fee for service basis. These services include market research, student recruitment, and enrollment. They even guarantee that your or our institutions will definitely got some new student intakes, course design and technology platforms, student retention, and so forth. But there is a warning. There is one big thing that COVID-19 has taught us. It is that it is a mistake to outsource our core educational capabilities. Teaching and learning are core capabilities of every single institution, including ours, so that we actually must not let it to be outsourced. Right. Now, let me focus on blended learning. Well, as we all know, blended learning means that we combine independent learning, especially through online independent learning. It means that we train our students to become independent learner, which is very precious as they face the challenges in the future. But we also make sure that they can still meet us as lecturers, online or hopefully later on offline or on-site. But somehow there is a big opportunity as they learn by themselves. We can design courses to be personalized and competency based. Why? Because using learning management system, for instance, we can design in their personal dashboard different kind of so-called modules for those who need some bridging, for instance. We can provide bridging courses before they can join together with their peers. But they do it outside the class, so it won't affect the schedule of our class. And it's actually will overcome the time-based approach that we previously had. Now, the second one, we need to consider the adoption of digital learning environment, because we should not stop only using learning management system, but all the assessment, the database for our teachers, lecturers, or students, and there is an opportunity for uh, developing further our relationship with our students. We need to make use all this technology. Okay, so this is basically the next generation of digital learning platform. Unfortunately, I do not have the luxury to explain this, but basically this is our aim. Formally, there are so many students of ours that they perhaps they are good students, but they also formally comply. Now it's about time as they move to become more independent in their learning. In Indonesia, we have a new concept introduced by our Minister of Education and Culture, Research and Technology. We call it as freedom to learn, or Merdeka Belajar. This is the goal that we would like to achieve, which focusing on student engagement and finally student empowerment so that they become independent learners. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. These are the main points how we need to strategically change or reorientate our instructional leadership beyond the pandemic for the good sake of our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Takim Adriano, for that wonderful and very informative presentation. I am sure our audience is excited to interact and, of course, listen to our next set of speakers. However, you may start posting your questions in the chat box, and we still have two speakers for the first part. Let us now proceed. Our second speaker was born in West Nusa Tenggara, Indonesia. She earned her bachelor's degree in Widya Mandala Surabaya Catholic University, Surabaya, Indonesia, and took up literature and language education program for her postgraduate degree at Surabaya State University. In 2011, she finished her doctorate degree in the Department of Applied Linguistics, the University of Groningen in the Netherlands. She previously worked as an English teacher at State Lau Senior High School, Surabaya, Indonesia Department of Teacher Training Faculty. He used to be a coordinator of graduate and diploma programs, head of public relations and Development Institute, and was placed in other positions and presently the head of intellectual property in WMSCU. For her lecture this afternoon, she will share her response to a research finding that the very essence of group work has been degraded. She will indirectly illustrate the process of knowledge construction, which draws on the cognitive and social constructive views of learning and will present a model appropriation path in a short video presentation. May I now pass on the virtual floor to our second speaker, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Tita Mina Dama.
Can't hear you, Dr. Sinta.
Dr. Tita, I think you're muted.
We still cannot hear you.
There must be problem with your microphone, maybe. You better check with your microphone.
Okay, hold on.
This one is correct. Okay.
Yeah, we can now hear you.
Okay, could you hear my voice now?
Yes, Dr. City.
Yes,
Yes,
Doctor.
ma'am.
Okay.
Very well. We can now hear you.
So without the headset then. Yeah. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to get the chance to be among the webinar participants on this Saturday. Oh, all right. A moment, please, for this coming share screen. Well, the title of my talk today on this special occasion is Appropriation of Collaborative Assessment in the Online Learning System. And here is the overview of my talk. Briefly, there is a brief background, and then there will be the main talk. And after that, there is a short video showing a model appropriation. And after that, the wrap up. Okay, and then now what actually gives rise to my talk? So it is one of the findings in our research, which has been published and published and reported in our books in 2015 and 2017. We found that the soul of group work has been deserted in classroom assessment. Simply, we found that group work has been quite vastly implemented in classroom instruction, but it's a pity formative test is still individual oriented. And then we make a claim that the very essence of group work has been diminished. And then here is one way I respond to it. So the students in my class are usually formed into 3 4-member groups. And today, an example is given for a group of 3 students. This group is assigned to study Unit 1, Argumentative Writing. Let's say it is from pages 1 until 15 from the course book. And then what do they do? So the preparation stage. The preparation is structured in such a way that there are 4 stages. On the first stage, okay, the group decides the presentation media. Let's say, because it is the common one, so PPT is chosen. And then there will be job distribution for individuals, so individual reading and individual PPT preparation. An example, so student A is assigned to read pages 1 until 5, student B 6 until 10, and then student C 11 until 15. And then what do they do for the next stage? So they submit the result of their preparation. Let's say student A has 4 slides, B has 5 slides, and C has 3 slides. And then in stage 3, so the students get together, they discuss the materials together using the so-called jigsaw method, one of the cooperative learning structures. And then they try to be the master of the whole materials. And then in stage 4, they just if the discussion results in the so-called the requirement for each to revise the PPT slides, for example, okay, they will do it. But what is more important is that the material should be divided into 3 parts. They are labeled as parts 1, 2, and 3 because there are 3 students. Okay, and then after the preparation of stage 4, so the students are expected to be ready for the collaborative assessment on the D-Day of their presentation. And then they know that they will have the so-called roles, different roles on the presentation day. A brief about the role. So member roles are also labeled as role 1, role 2, and role 3. Role 1 means that the student is the spokesperson or the presenter, representing the group to present a certain part of the materials. And then role 2, the student is the prompter, assisting the spokesperson when he or she is stuck. And then role 3 means that the student is the moderator and technician. He or she assists the group to open or close the presentation and assists the spokesperson for the presentation media display. All right, and then what happens on the assessment day, okay, on the D-Day? So first of all, there is number drawing, stage 1, for assigning the roles for the students. And then this media, this set of media can be prepared. For example, kinds of fruits. So 3 pictures of fruits. It is to be chosen by the students. And when it is clicked, numbers will appear. Number 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then there is also another board to fill. Okay, it looks like this. So for sure, the materials are divided into 3 parts. It is there at the top. So part 1, part 2, and part 3. And then number 1, 2, 3 here means that it is the label of the member role. And then the number drawing will have to be done for the completion of the names here in the boxes here. Okay, then let's say a group of students named Billy, Mina, and Arini. After the number drawing, it results something like this. So Billy gets number 1, Mina 3, Arini 2. So we put the names here in the boxes. So Billy number 1, Arini number 2, Mina number 3. Okay. So then based on the table here, so for part 1 presentation, it is Billy. It is for Billy to be the spokesperson, and then Arini as the prompter, Mina as the moderator and technician. All right, okay then. What happens after that? So it is the presentation itself. Okay, part 1 presentation. After the presentation, there is a brief break. So number drawing again, stage 2. For this stage, we can prepare another set of pictures. Let's say kinds of vegetables now. So when it is clicked, so thanks to the facility of hyperlink in PPT, so the numbers will appear. But this time it is not number 1, 2, 3, but only number 1 and 0, nothing. Okay, an example. Let's continue with the previous group. So number drawing stage 2 is done, and Arini, let's say, gets number 1. So we put number 1 here, and then, okay, for part 3, we put number 1 here. It is for Mina. Okay, and then with simple mathematics probably, or maybe if I may say it, it is one of the skills of computational thinking. So we can at last fill in these boxes with numbers. So everyone will get different numbers, different roles at last. Okay, then, okay, we can see that from this table. So only one here, but then it is completed. Okay, something like this from the bottom to the second line. And then at last, okay, Bailey's role can be determined. It looks like that, okay. Based on the table that has been completed, then it is for sure for part 2 presentation. Okay, it looks like this. So Arini is the spokesperson, Mina, prompter, Bailey, moderator, and technician. And then for part 3 presentation, Mina is the spokesperson, Bailey, prompter, Arini, moderator, and technician. And then what about alternative 2 for stage 2 number drawing? So similar procedure is actually happens. And okay, because of time limitation, I'd like to jump to this slide. Okay, so this is alternative 1. Number drawing at that time, Arini gets number 1. Okay, so part 2, Arini gets number 1. But there is another possibility. The number drawing results in, okay, Mina gets number 1. So Mina, for the line of Mina, number 1 is here. And for part 3, so it is number 1 here for Arini. And then, okay, computational thinking skill will help us to come to this alternative 2 table. All right, and then what happens is, okay, the presentation of the materials for parts 2 and part 3. And typically, question and answer session takes place. All right, dear webinar participants, this slide indicates that I have just finished with my main talk. And after this, there will be a simple model appropriation. I'm going to stop sharing and okay, over to you, Pak Galuh. Who wants to help me to write as the note taker? Okay. One of the 3 of you, please.
Okay, me, ma'am.
So who is me?
Aldo.
Aldo, okay. So Aldo, okay, prepared in the chat, 1, 2, 3. And then after that, okay, Hans or Kitia first? Okay, ladies first, okay. Ladies first?
Grapes.
Grapes, okay. So number 2 for Kitia, yeah, okay. And then Hans?
Apple, ma'am.
Apple, okay then. So number 3, yeah, okay. So that means, okay, Aldo, you get number 1, yeah, because the rest is...
I'm number 1.
Yeah, because the rest is watermelon. When I click watermelon, it says number 1, yeah, okay. All right. So it means that I have to show the presentation board. Hang on. Okay, help me please. Number 1 is seemingly Aldo, yeah, I still remember
Aldo.
And then number 2.
Number 2 is Kitia.
Okay, Kitia, and then number 3.
Hans.
Okay, thank you. I hope you still remember. Okay, so for part 1, Aldo, you are the spokesperson, assisted by Kitia and Hans. Kitia will be the prompter. If Aldo is stuck, okay, Kitia will help. Hans, you help as the moderator and also directly as a technician, yeah? Okay. Okay, I leave it to you, caring group. Okay.
Okay, good morning, ma'am, and good morning, friends. Today, we from the caring group will presentate about argumentative writing. The caring group consists of Kitia, Rivaldo, and me. So for the first part will be presented by Rivaldo. Rivaldo,
okay.
The time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Hans. Okay, please, next slide, Kitia. Okay, in the first topic, for our presentation, we will discuss about language feature. Using thinking verbs like feel, hope, reformulating. We can say in other words, blah, 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 or that is blah, 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 blah. Yes, I think that's all, Hans, for my part. I'll give it back to you. I think that's
Okay,
all, and thank you.
thank you, Rivaldo, for explaining about the part one.
You're welcome.
So we will further continue to part two, but let's have a short break. Thank you.
Okay, so now please, Hans and Kitia, I have two kinds of vegetables. Which one do you choose?
Tomato, ma'am.
Hans, tomato, okay? So nothing, zero, it means number one is for Kitia. So, okay then, yeah? So I'm going to continue with my presentation board here. Okay, help me. So, Kitia number?
one.
Okay, one. So it means this is two, yeah? This is one, sorry, okay. So for part two, it is decided Kitia will be the spokesperson. Okay, for part three later, okay, Hans will be the spokesperson. Okay, let's fill in the blanks. Okay, so 3, 1 here, so it means this is?
Two.
Okay,
Two.
thank you. So this is 2, 1, then it means this is?
3.
Okay, thank you. Now go up. So 2, 1,
3.
3, okay. And then this one, for sure
Two.
it is? Okay, thank you. So keep this, please. Keep this for parts 2 and 3. Yeah?
Right,
You will be the spokesperson assisted by Hans and Aldo for the prompter and moderator technician respectively. Similarly, in part 3, okay then, so Hans will be the spokesperson assisted by Aldo as the prompter and Kitia moderator and technician, yeah?
Okay, hello all, and we are going to continue the presentation from Caring Group. And for Kitia, the presenter for this part, Kitia, time is yours.
Thank you, Rivaldo. And I will continue with expression in referring to their own work. First is limiting the scope, like, and the other verbs we can use is allege, insist, suggest, and point out.
Okay, Kitia, thank you for a good explanation. And we are going to continue to the last part. And for all my friends, please stay tuned and I'll give it to Kitia as a moderator. Thank
Yes,
you.
wait a second. I will share my screen. So the last part will be Hans, and Hans, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Kitia. So I will continue to present for the last part. So there are two ways of presenting pro and so from these two arguments, we can have a conclusion that problems of accidents and crimes make gun ownership difficult to accept. Okay, I think that's all for my part. I'll give it back to Kitia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hans, for explaining the last part, and that's all from our group. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so thank you, Pak Kayu. All right, a moment please for my coming share screen. Dear webinar participants, I come to the end of my talk now. So I have started with a brief background, and then after that I shared how I assess collaborative learning in my online class. And then just now we have finished watching the video, a short video showing a model appropriation, a simple one. And then, okay, that means I have tried to illustrate actually the so-called the process of knowledge construction, which draws on the cognitive and social constructivist views of learning. I'm really through now, ladies and gentlemen, with my talk. Hopefully it is useful, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Mina. Surely it is really useful, not just for the audience here, but everyone who will be able to watch this recorded video session. May I also extend the gratitude of our participants in our chat box to Dr. Mina and to Dr. Takim as well. Thank you very much. Again, this is to remind everyone that your questions will be answered later, but you can type them in the chat box and we shall be saving them and we'll be reading them after the last speaker. So shall we move on to our last speaker for the session of this webinar? Our last speaker took up TEFL as his bachelor's degree at Vidya Mandala Surabaya Catholic University. Later on, he finished his master's degree in English Applied Linguistics at Atmajaya Catholic University in Jakarta. And he earned also his doctorate degree in English Applied Linguistics in the same university. His professional training includes PPM case teaching and writing workshop and ONDT or Overseas Non-Degree Training Bilingual Class Observation at Ohio State University, Columbus, USA. He used to be the Vice Dean of Academic Affairs, Director of Vidya Mandala Language Center, the Laboratory Head, and currently he is the head of Master's Program in English Education, Graduate School of Vidya Mandala, Surabaya Catholic University. Today, he wants to share his experience using WriteLog as a learning device for an independent learning. This digital learning was actually created in 2019 for a blended learning, and it aims to assist students to form correct and effective noun phrases as they mostly appear in sentences. WriteLog has been developed for 3 years, since 2019. To know more about WriteLog, ladies and gentlemen, we proudly give the virtual floor to Dr. Hendra Teja Suksmana.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to share my experience with the WriteLog. Can you see my slide? Now, you know
yes,
that
Dr. Hendra, we can see it.
During the COVID-19, everything changes, you see. So human contacts are minimized, or perhaps there is no human contact at all. So when humans contact to close, I mean, and then you see schools and universities are in closure. So it means that you see there's an absence of interactions. As Mr. Andriano here said, that there is no face-to-face instructions any longer. Then you see that interaction between teachers and students, or among teachers and among students here, are done in another way. And this shocked everyone, including teachers, especially when teachers are not ready with the use of gadget, with the use when students and teachers here should do the e-learning. So it seems that e-learning is the solution to the problem. And you see that I just want to share WriteLog, and WriteLog here actually was created with a team, an IT team, and also my research team in 2019. Actually, in the beginning, you see that the right lock here was intended to be used for a blended learning. But as you know that this is a 3-year research grant in 2020. Yeah, 2020. Then we began with the real online learning. Yeah. Now, the idea why right lock here was created is actually that university students are supposed to publish the articles in journal. And we can see that constructing sentences is very important. And you see one of the elements in a sentence here is noun phrases. As you see, noun phrases can be found in sentences. Now, and then it seems that constructing a noun phrase is easy, but in fact, it is not. Many students can use or cannot construct noun phrases effectively. And then we just try to analyze the problems and analyze the patterns, and then we come to 7 patterns of noun phrases that the students had to master. Now, later on, I will also show you what the right lock is like. Now, in our research in 2020, in the first year, 2019, we were busy creating the platform here, creating a right lock. What content should be included in the right lock, and also that we were also busy with creating or constructing materials, pre-tests and post-tests, and then also exercises, and also the video tutorial. Yeah, so that because this is intended that students can learn Can you? Oh, wait a minute. Can you see my slides? Sorry.
Yes.
You can just make it bigger, Dr. Hendra. Present it lower right.
Yeah.
There.
This one? Okay. So you see that there were some students taking part on their grades and took part in the taken part in our research in 2020, and the result is like this one. So module starting from module 2 to module 7. Module 1 was done in 2019 because we didn't have enough time to do the other modules, because in as I said that in 2019 we were busy with creating and constructing the design and also the platform of RightLock. You see that if you see this slide, the result is that there is an improvement here from the pre-test and the post-test. Yeah. Now, and then when we ask whether RightLock is effective, then let us see responses from the students, because we also put questionnaire in the RightLock. Concerning the video tutorials, students here gave positive responses, because you see that the video tutorial can make the students more self-confident, and they understand better, and then they are motivated again to learn. You see that actually that they learned this when they were in the lower semester, but then now when they are they became the subjects of the research, then they were quite happy with this one, right? And you see that the explanation, according to them, yeah, is well structured and understood. And concerning the language in the test and also in the exercises, vocabulary is mostly known and they can understand the vocabulary, while the exercises also help them to form noun phrases. And you see with the exercises, the students can practice more again concerning the noun phrases. And the right lock operation, how to operate the right lock. So according to them, technically, that it is easy to operate. So in my conclusion, then you see that the right lock here really minimizes the interaction between teachers and students, as it was first designed for a hybrid learning, for a blended learning. Then there was a real meeting, yeah, with the students. Yeah. Then in this pandemic, you see, it can also be used. Yeah. Even though that, yeah, teachers can also make a meeting with them here through Zoom, for example, if the students still didn't understand about the concept, yeah, and explanation. Actually, students could also read the explanation again, and they can also watch the video tutorials again concerning theory, and then they can go back to the exercises, why the answers are wrong, and then what are the correct answers, and they can go back to the theory. So I can say that you see that they can practice using right lock here at their own pace, you see. Time can be different. Yeah. So one student from another student. One student, for example, wants to do it in the afternoon when they are free, and the others can do it in the evening when they are free. So you see, there is no time. There is no time constraint in this case. And then students can also check. You can do the self-checking because answer keys are also provided. Then you see that well, even though it was intended for the hybrid learning, also for the independent learning. Now, now I just want to show you what the right lock is like. Now, this is the right lock. You see that students can go to the rightlock.wima.ac.id, and you see that they can come to us to get the username and also the number in order to be able to log in. Wait a minute. Yeah. We are still waiting. Yeah. Now, this when they get in, then you see that they will find kinds of patterns of a noun phrases. You see, it's quite slow. Now, okay. I say from module 1, so we have 8 modules. Module 1, it concerns with the noun as a pre-modifier and the plus head noun. And then next is module 2, determiner plus head noun, and adjectives plus head noun, and hyphenated phrases plus head noun, and then head noun plus prepositional phrases, and then module 6 concerning the final clause, adjective clause as the pre-modifier, and then a participial phrase, and then the last one is the mixed exercises. So from module 1 to module 7. Yeah. Now let us see module 6. What is inside module 6? Now, you see that the students can read the overview here. So why that they are learning adjective clauses, for example, in this module. So what they are expected to obtain from the lesson. And then they also know the kind of activities, learning activities that they can access, like the pre-test, and then there is also exercises, and then the explanation part, and then but before they join, then the students can introduce themselves. Yeah. Now let's take a look at the pre-test here. What is in the pre-test? Now basically pre-test here and post-test are the same. This is the identity of the students. So when it is recorded, name of the students and the username, ID number, and then the email address and the status of the students while doing this, whether they have finished doing this or not. And then the date, you see that they did the exercise, and then the score here. So everything is recorded. Since it's a pre-test, you can see that the scores, yeah, are not so good, is it? 3, 5, 3, and 5, 4, yeah, in the pre-test. And you see that the machine here can automatically correct or check the answers of the students. So which one is correct, and then with the score and the wrong answers, yeah, and then to get the result here. So let's take a look at these students. Now, this is the pretest, right? Now you see that the machine here can automatically check the answers. The red ones here means that the answers are wrong, and the green one means correct. You see. Now there's the exercise. What is in the exercise? So in the first part, there is a multiple choice. So students are given sentence here, and then with the blanks that they have to fill in by choosing the choices A, B, C, or D. Right. This is a multiple choice, and another activity is the arranging the words here. Since this is an adjective clause, then the clue is given here, the lady as the head noun, and then that they have to order the phrases here, or the word or words in the problem. Yeah. So for example, the lady who is in the waiting room, right? So you see, this is the NP already. So with the head noun and then the adjective clause, and then the students will also know the correct answer, right? The later on when they check the answer. Now, besides that, then they can also learn arranging words, and then this one is combining, so combining the sentences, right? The marathon race passes for the famous street hill houses. Its theme is painted ladies. Now, how to combine this, right? Now, then the answer of the students is wrong, right? I just want to show the type of the activities or the exercise here. And you still have this forming a noun phrase containing an adjective clause also. And then the error analysis, I just want to show you. Correct the relative pronoun used in each of the sentences below. So here, for example, who here, right? Whether it is right or not, right? Now, and then they have to decide, and then if it is wrong, then they have to give the correct one. Now, those are the activities that they can find in the right block in each of the modules. And the module is also completed or equipped with the questionnaire here and there. These are the exercises for the students with the explanation, as I told you, the video tutorial. If they would like to just, they do not want to watch the video, it's okay. Then they can also open the explanation here. Oops. Or they can also watch the video here for tutorial. Now, the video tutorial is bilingual. Why? Because this a right block can also be used by non-English department students when they are learning English, especially they are learning how to construct noun phrases. It takes long, sorry. Now, sorry for this. This one, if they do not want to watch the video, then they can also read the explanation here, with the defining relative clause, and then non-defining, defining, the explanation is there. But if it is a video, then you see that the facilitator is explaining also to the student. Sorry, because it takes a long while. It should be time. The questionnaire is put here in the end. Yeah, asking so what advantages that they can get from this module, and then whether they are able to form noun phrase with the adjective clauses, and then also, as I showed you before, concerning the use of the operation of this right lock, whether they have difficulty or not. So that's it. Well, I suppose that's all for right lock that we created. This is a 3-year research grant, and you see that this year 2021 is the last year. Okay, thank you. Hello.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hendra, for sharing another interesting learning device with us. I am sure our participants found it really interesting, and they learned so much from your lecture, as well as the first 2 lectures. As we mentioned a while ago, our speakers will now entertain your questions from each part of the webinar. In this 15-minute Q&A, we shall be reading the questions that you sent in our chat box. So let us begin. We have very specific questions here, which are sent to our speakers. So our first question is for Dr. Takim from Herazi. And he said here, a lack of support and encouragement from school administrators and teaching colleagues often pose the biggest obstacle for developing digital literacies. Do you have any suggestions or ideas to tackle these challenges?
Yes, thank you. I would like to suggest that you start first. Maybe you as a teacher, you can start in your classroom, and then show or share the success story. Because according to Toynbee, a great historian, any changes in this world, the history of the world, actually always is initiated by creative minority, who is finally convincing the majority. So hopefully it will answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Takim, for that brief yet really fruitful answer. Now, we have a question for Dr. Mina from Christian Tabayag. How can we teach or enrich students' involvement to students who are not motivated to study, especially in the present educational setup? Dr. Mina, you are muted.
All right. Okay. Thank you. The question, if I'm not mistaken, it is about how to help our students who are not motivated enough to learn. Am I correct?
Yes, Dr. Mina.
Okay. Well, there are lots of ways actually to make the students, to make our students motivated. When we talk about inner motivation and outer intrinsic motivation or extrinsic motivation, well, there are so many ways probably. We vary our techniques probably. That is one way. So sometimes we use this technique, another technique, and then we call it electric approach probably. That is the term in our teaching methodology. With lots of how can I say that? Lots of devices and platforms for teaching, which are available because of technology. Then I guess, okay, hopefully the unmotivated students can be motivated. Well, probably that is my short answer. I hope it is satisfying to the one questioning me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mina. And then a question for Dr. Hendra. How can teachers know the authenticity of the students' output through the right log? How can we assess their output if it's really them who answered it?
Yeah. Actually, that this is an independent learning, right? Students can do at their own pace, and they can do all the exercises and tests at home. Then we just emphasize to the students that well, they have to do this alone, right? Now, if they have problems, then they can ask me or ask. Yeah, there is also a forum, yeah, inside the right log here. That is a question and answer between friends, for example, if they want to get to understand more or better concerning a particular item that they don't understand that. Yeah. So well, we cannot actually control them. You see that okay, oh, you do not do this alone, right? Or you just cheat now. We just emphasize the students that this is very important for you later on when you are asked to write an article in a journal so that your English is better, right? Your non-phrase construction here is effective and economical. You do not write, yeah, I mean, uneconomical phrases, you see, well, actually that the two sentences can be combined into one, then why that you have to write it in two sentences? So exercises can help the students here a lot, is as their responses when in our research in 2020. That is, yeah. So this is a self-independent learning. So students are supposed to be independent now, with the minimum control from the teacher, right, or from the lecturers now. And if they want to get the authentic result that this is my effort, then yeah, that's it. Then they have to realize this. That is, am I answering the questions?
Yes, Dr. Hendra. Thank you very much, Dr. Hendra. We have a question sent before the webinar in our registration link. It says here, in group and classical setting, how do we bridge the gap between fluent students and students who still struggle with their speaking skills? It is not directed to a particular speaker, but perhaps someone can address this one.
Okay, so let me try. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So for sure, in a classroom of ours, it is difficult to get students who are all at the same level of achievement. So there are low achievers, there are middle achievers, and there are also high achievers. I guess what we can do is, okay, to mix them in our grouping. So we call it, yeah, in references, we know about heterogeneous grouping. So in one group, we put the students of high achieving academic ability and also low academic achieving students. So my answer is probably, okay then, by probably, okay, taking care of the group formation, probably I might call it. So the formation of our grouping, so that it becomes heterogeneous grouping. Yeah, so maybe that is what I can answer. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mina.
Well, you see that yeah, as Dr. Mina said, that you see when we can also group the students here. We do not let the students to group themselves. You see, usually they try to find their own friends. You see, then you see that later then we can see that, oh, this is group of fluent students. this group is of less fluent students, you see. So if that happens, then fluent students becomes fluent students, and they can be more fluent students, right? And then while the less fluent students do not get anything, right? Do not gain any knowledge and do not make an improvement. So that's why a teacher here can also group them, and especially in online when we are using Zoom, you see that we can see, right? Because machine can automatically group the students, yeah, and we can see if the members of the students here are quite good. So I mean, the group is mixed. Then you see that yeah, they can discuss the topic, right? And while the teachers here can go around, visit around the rooms, to facilitate the learning, if in case that they have difficulties, and also to check whether the students also are really serious to learn. Yeah. Now, you see that, yeah, teachers you should also uh, uh, help students on and on. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Hendra. All right, let us move to the next question. Okay, the question here, it's directed to Dr. Takim. How can we maintain student engagement in a digital or online learning environment?
Okay, thank you for the question. Well, using the technology, according to me, actually the task of the lecturer or teacher becomes easier because we can combine the learning materials where the students can learn by themselves. For instance, now we can use or choose for them videos or maybe cartoon or something which really interests them. And also we can communicate directly with them, encourage them and so on. So uh, engaging means also involving them in the process. So after, the problem is if they are not ready, then we invite them to join a discussion, they will keep themselves very, very quiet, right? But using a blended learning, for instance, but in particular flipped classroom, meaning that the students get the opportunity to learn by themselves beforehand, it really helps them to join the discussion or the project-based learning. So in this case, I think the main point is to make themselves be prepared and they are ready to be involved in the learning process together collaboratively with their peers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Takim. And we are now down to our last question. This is perhaps for all of our speakers. How do we promote inclusivity in online classes? Perhaps Dr. Hendra would like to go first.
Yeah. Concerning the inclusivity, you see that first of all, then you have to make the students here able to engage themselves in the classroom, right? So you see that the teachers here and also our lecturers used to make the class here feel that they have you see that the desire to learn seriously, so that they really are in the class. Yeah. So the class belongs to them. Yeah. And then yeah, students here should be given more time, yeah, to digest the lesson that we are explaining, right? And then if they do not understand, then they can given more time to ask, yeah, because you see that it is quite different. You see that the online classes and face-to-face classes now, and the students should be made to feel that they can succeed in learning. Yeah. Otherwise, that if the students do not feel that, then the students won't take part in the class. Then they are quite quiet, or they are doing something else, perhaps because they cannot see. You see that because you see that in the online classes, students always or often show the photo only. You see. Yeah, because they have a reason, right? Because of the quota, or because of the connection of the internet is so poor, so they cannot show their faces in the on the screen. You see, in that way, then the teachers can control them, right? Can see what they are doing, whether they are even though that we still do not know what they are doing. Yeah. On the table, right? Because they are not seen in the screen. Yeah, at least with the faces on the screen, then it is good for teachers to know. But if not, then yeah, that is to make them realize that you see that these online classes are also very important to them, even though that they are constraints. You see. Now, and then teachers should also be flexible, right, in giving assignments. Yeah, if the students cannot access or cannot have the good connection, then yeah, teachers can also prepare the materials in PDF, and then you see that teachers can give the material to them so that they can learn at home. And if the questions, then the students can also contact contact the teachers or the lecturers. Yeah, so by doing that, I suppose then easy the student feel that they belong to the class. Yeah, well, that's from me, in my opinion.
Yes, Dr. Hendra, thank you very much. Dr. Mina?
Sorry, I don't clearly get the question actually. So could you just reread or help me?
Okay, ma'am. The question is, how do we promote inclusivity in online classes?
Inclusivity. Well, I need to know, sorry, the
Yes,
term,
ma'am.
inclusivity. Maybe the one questioning can give a bit illustration about this one. So inclusive
Yes,
class
ma'am.
in Indonesia.
When we say, yes, ma'am.
What I know in Indonesia, inclusive class is those people, those students are all, let's say, they are not students of having disabilities, so so they are matched together with the others, simply probably normal children. So is that what it means? Sorry.
Yes, ma'am. And it may also mean, because we are talking of an online setup, it may also mean those students who have strong internet connection, and then those who do not have internet connection, or those students who can easily access the online materials. And then included are those students also who are having difficulty coping with the online classes.
Okay, so thank you. Maybe this is my answer then, because there are two types of online learning. One is synchronous, the other one is asynchronous. Maybe, well, we should be flexible then in our teaching. So when the internet connection is down, for example, and the certain students cannot join, then for sure the facility in the learning management system should be maximized. So the so-called probably forum facility, we can put questions there, for example, or when the students having the problem in the internet connection, when they get back the internet connection late at night, for example, they just can go back to the learning management system and put the questions there. And it is the responsibility of the teachers to answer or to respond to it. Maybe that is what I can share.
Thank you, Dr. Mina. And lastly, we have Dr. Takim.
Yes, I just want to add that this is what we need, flexible learning mode. So in learning delivery, it is very important to make sure that our students can learn anywhere, anytime, at any pace, right? So all the obstacles must be overcome, like Pa Hendra and Nina mentioned, that there is a many possibility that we can still assess our students, not just by a single mode, right? So we need to be more flexible, overcoming this kind of digital gap and also other obstacles. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Takim. And once again, on behalf of our participants, we'd like to thank you, our dear speakers, for sharing your valuable insights and for answering our participants' question about our topics this afternoon. With that, we will now award the Certificate of Appreciation to our research speakers.
Thank you.
All right. Allow me to read the content of the certificate. This certificate of appreciation is awarded to Dr. Takim Adriano as a speaker in the webinar on strategic changes in language education during and post-COVID-19, held via Zoom on May 8th, 2021 at 1300 to 1600 Jakarta time or 1400 to 1700 Manila time. Signed, Professor Dr. Michael Anthony C. Vasco, Dean, the Graduate School, University of Santo Tomas, and Professor Dr. Ami Suwandi, Director, Graduate School of Vidya Mandala Surabaya Catholic University. Once again, thank you very much, Dr. Takim, Dr. Siti, and Dr. Hendra for being with us today. The same certificate shall be awarded to Dr. Siti and Dr. Hendra. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give our speakers a virtual round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you so much to our first batch of speakers. But before we proceed, we'd like to announce that the link for the evaluation and certificate will be posted in the chat box right after the closing remarks. The first part of this afternoon session has been enlightening, but it does not end there. Surely the second part will be as informative and enjoyable. Let me introduce our speakers from the University of Santo Tomas. Our first speaker for the second part facilitates teacher and student training, conducts research on English language teaching and education-related trends and issues across and outside the country. He is a full-time and tenured member of the faculty of the University of Santo Tomas Department of English, where he has just recently been promoted to Associate Professor for. He served as the faculty secretary and the coordinator for internalization of the UST Graduate School from November 2013 to December 2019 and August 2017 to 2020, respectively. At present, he is the editor-in-chief of the Asian Journal of English Language Studies, the international referee and official journal of the University of Santo Tomas Department of English, and the immediate past president of the Linguistic Society of the Philippines, the premier organization of linguists and language practitioners in the Philippines. My dear friends, let us all welcome Dr. Alejandro S. Bernardo.
Thank you, Chrysler. Can you hear me, Chrysler? Is my
Yes.
audio clear, Chrysler? Thank you for that very kind introduction. And I'd like to thank everyone for inviting us this afternoon to be part of this joint lecture. We hope that we'll be able to share some profound insights we gathered out of the 1 year pandemic teaching we're in. I'm Andrew, and I'm happy to see after how many years, Professor Hendra. So thank you for this partnership with the University of Santo Tomas, particularly with the University of Santo Tomas Graduate School. All right, let me share my screen first. Just give me a second, please. Chrysler, do you see the PDF file? I'm screen sharing now.
Yes, Doc.
Is that the only thing you see? Is that the only thing you see?
Yes.
I just don't want that there'll be something embarrassing popping out of my screen. So I needed to make sure that it's the only thing that you see, my presentation. So my sharing this afternoon is titled Pandemic Proofing English Language Teaching and Learning through Asynchronous Engagements. And I'd like to begin my presentation by saying that with this question, how do we make English language teaching and learning pandemic proof? I do not have to convince everyone here to believe that COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on education in many different ways. Stressors caused by the COVID-19 pandemic or other events that could trigger extended remote transitions, such as local natural disasters, may adversely or unsympathetically impact student engagement in their coursework or in the different courses they're taking up at this semester, for example. And so the question I ask is it possible to ensure that the next pandemic will not do the same? So is it possible to pandemic-proof English language teaching and learning? As it is, these natural disasters have adversely affected the teaching and learning processes. Now we have less contact hours with our students. There is a much higher student dropout rates ever recorded. Schools and other infrastructural facilities are shattered, and not all, even the most essential or the minimum learning competencies are covered in the different syllabi. And there are a lot of other unwanted side effects of these natural disasters and now the pandemic. And the Philippines and Indonesia are hardly spared from these natural disasters and calamities. Every year or every other year, our country, the Philippines, is always in the news. If not the very news, the whole world gets to read and the whole world gets to watch. If you look at the table, for example, in 2011, there was this tropical storm Washi in the Philippines. And in 20, the next one would be Typhoon Haiyan. Okay. And in Indonesia, there was also an earthquake, and there were tsunamis that occurred sometime in 2018. Okay. And according to the World Risk Report in 2018, the Philippines ranked third in terms of disaster risk index. And due to its geographical context, the highest risk posed to the country are those of earthquakes reported with 10 risk index points and tropical cyclones of 9.5 risk index points. And disaster hazards besides earthquakes, besides volcanic eruptions within the so-called ring of fire, coupled with coastal hazards such as typhoons, floodings, and rising sea levels, pose a huge, constant, and great threat to the population of the Philippines, with over 100 million inhabitants as of 2015. And the damages caused by these droughts, for example, resulting from El Nino, were the highest in 2016 compared to the damages done by other natural disasters, and were valued at 12.8 trillion Philippine pesos. What does this mean? In the Philippines, it's not only these natural disasters that we all deal with, but the global pandemic, which has unsympathetically affected the teaching and learning enterprise. While the coronavirus has infected over 1 million people in the Philippines, a total of close to 25 million students, elementary and high school students in both public and private schools, and 3.5 million college students go, quote unquote, go to school or attend, quote unquote, attend classes, even if not everyone has the means to do so. A lot of our students have no electricity, no gadgets, no stable internet connectivity. Not everyone can continue learning given the present situation or given the present condition. And so, how do we provide quality instruction to those who have access to education, and more importantly, to those who completely do not have access, and those who still strive to have access to it despite dearth of or insufficient resources? And earlier, somebody asked a question about inclusivity in online learning, and I'm happy that our esteemed speakers from Widya Mandala substantially responded to that question on inclusivity. To Joe Napolitano, the students' lives, the ELL learners in particular, because these 25 million and 25 million elementary and high school students and 3.5 million college students may also be regarded as the English language learners in the Philippines, because as it is, one of the main medium of instruction in the Philippines is English. So we treat all of them as English language learners. And to Joe Napolitano, the students' lives, these millions of students' lives, have been totally turned upside down. And there is so much goodness in school, the physical school, like our campuses, our universities, that they are missing out on. Many live in poverty and are just starting to learn English, and they will probably fall further behind. And there is no recent historic event equivalent for the current shutdowns of universities and schools. But hope still remains. And in the words of Barbara Marler, she says, when things get back to normal, we just don't know when, we can accelerate the growth as long as we take care of them right now. And this means that we can still do something no matter how difficult or challenging our individual and our collective circumstances would be. Now, in times like this, and this was mentioned or underscored several times earlier, we recognize the value of both online and offline e-teaching and learning. And for purposes of clarification, in my presentation or in my sharing today, offline teaching and learning is not equated to face-to-face teaching and learning, okay? At least for purposes of our discussion this afternoon. We don't look at offline learning as equivalent to face-to-face teaching and learning, and I'll explain further in a little while. E-teaching and learning, or electronic teaching and learning, is the delivery of learning and instruction through digital resources. Although e-learning is based on formalized learning, it is provided through electronic devices such as computers, tablets, and even cellular phones that are connected to the internet. But offline teaching and learning means helping the learners download the courseware or the course materials whenever network connectivity is available, and then engage in self-paced offline learning at their own time convenience. So there is a difference, looking at this definition, it offers a different way of looking at offline learning, okay? Hence, the provision of offline e-learning, where the content can be set up ahead of time when access to internet connection, say, is already available or more stable. So this offline learning feature becomes a hit. It becomes a hit for those who don't have an internet connection at home or while traveling. Thanks to the internet, thanks to Google, thanks to Zoom, thanks to Panopto, thanks to Microsoft Teams, to the other LMS that we use, and in UST, it's Blackboard, and in other Philippine universities, they use Canvas as their LMS. Thanks to the teacher-made modules provided to the learners who seem to have unequal access to information and, of course, unequal access to education. So e-teaching and learning is no more an option. It is a necessity. I repeat, it's no longer an option. It is a necessity. And the coronavirus has made institutions to go from face-to-face mode to online and offline mode of pedagogy. And this crisis will make these institutions, such as yours and mine, which were earlier reluctant to change, to accept wholeheartedly modern technology. A case in point is the Big Four, or the top 4 universities in the Philippines. So we have De La Salle University, Ateneo de Manila University, the University of Santo Tomas, and the state-run University of the Philippines, UP Diliman in particular. The DLSU resorted to remote online learning, which combines both synchronous and asynchronous activities. For students who cannot participate in online learning, there are flexible options for completing course requirements throughout the academic year. Ateneo suspended synchronous online classes. What they're doing now is purely asynchronous learning, so that all students can learn at their own pace. UST, like DLSU, has opted to continue with synchronous and asynchronous online classes and a flexible grading of student outputs and assessments. Other universities and institutions such as St. Scholastica's College, Adamson University, and many more have continued with their online classes as well. But what this tells us is the fact that there was a sudden, or if I may say, overnight shift of normal classrooms into e-classrooms. That is, educators, often with little to no training at all, have shifted their entire pedagogical approach to tackle new market conditions and adapt to the changing situation. And during these tough times, the concern is not about whether online teaching learning methods will really work or can provide quality education. The question is, it's rather how academic institutions or schools will be able to adopt online learning in such a very massive manner. And an author, Shivanji Dhawan, says that there was no resistance to change at all because it will not help any educational institution across the world. Because these institutions like UST will be judged on its pace to adapt to the changes in such a short period and its ability to maintain the quality of education or quality of instruction it offers. Otherwise, they lose their reputation. We will lose our reputation if we will not be able to adapt to these changes happening around us. So, online learning, so there was a shift from purely face-to-face to fully online learning. And we know what online learning is about. And for purposes of just recalling its definition, we look at online learning as learning experiences in synchronous or asynchronous environments using different devices, such as mobile phones, laptops, etc., with internet access. And in these environments, our students can be anywhere, independent to learn and interact with their instructors and other students. Asynchronous learning environment is structured in the sense that students attend live lectures. There are real-time interactions between educators and learners, and there is a possibility of instant feedback. Whereas in asynchronous learning environments, they are not as properly structured as synchronous online classes. And in such a learning environment, learning content is not available in the form of live lectures or classes. It is available at different learning systems and forums. Experts in online learning argue it's the way a course is designed, not whether it's asynchronous or synchronous. There is no use debating which one is better, which one is worse, okay? Because what matters most is the design and the structuring of the lessons, or what I would call engagements. That determines whether students will eventually succeed. Since students can benefit from both asynchronous and synchronous learning, many emerging pedagogies utilize both types of instruction. And this is the case in our university. In a week, there is one asynchronous session and there's another synchronous session. But in the College of Education, classes are generally or predominantly asynchronous. But for the Faculty of Arts and Letters, where I am from, it's a mix of equal mix, actually, of synchronous and asynchronous in terms of the number of meetings. In terms of the number of meetings, let me clarify that, not in terms of the number of engagements, okay? Now, my job this afternoon is to focus on the beauty of asynchronous online learning, okay? And if you check the most recent literature, you'll find out that asynchronous learning occurs through online channels and allows the learners to move at their own time, place, and pace. And the common methods of asynchronous online learning include self-guided lesson modules, pre-recorded video content, what else? Visual libraries, lecture notes, and online discussion boards or social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter. And you will notice that asynchronous online learning is a key shift and consideration in today's setup. You can look at the second row. It says asynchronous instruction self-paced as a key consideration in distance education or in distance learning. And this only shows asynchronous online learning is favored most of the time. Its advantages, which I will discuss shortly, are worth taking into consideration. So what are the advantages of asynchronous online learning? One is flexibility, and flexibility and self-paced learning are key aspects of asynchronous learning. It allows flexibility for all learners and easily accommodates different learning styles. Students can often choose their own adventure, their own mission, their own engagement when it comes to the order in which they cover material and how deep to dive into a given topic. And asynchronous learning is sometimes also called location-independent schooling. Again, it's often called location-independent schooling because students can access their schoolwork anywhere in the world. The next is pacing and learner control. And by definition, asynchronous learning allows students to design their own learning schedules. Students can spend more time on challenging areas and work toward mastery. Individual pacing also helps address different learning styles. The next is collaboration and using discussion boards and interactive document editing. All these can help students engage more deeply with the materials they're working with as they communicate with one another. And asynchronous collaboration allows our students to reach out for help when they need it and to work with the material as long as needed before sharing their thoughts with others. And taking the time to process content and discussion at a more flexible pace leads to a richer, more personalized experience overall. And it's not only me saying this. You may refer to the most recent studies on asynchronous online learning And this is what you'll be able to gather as well. The next is it's student-centered, and its basic premise is that learning can occur in different times and spaces, particularly to each learner, as opposed to synchronous learning at the same time and place with groups of learners and their instructor, or one learner and their instructor. In asynchronous learning, instructors usually set up a learning path with which students engage with at their own pace. The next is personalized and reflective. Students are guided through a variety of learning activities, and they complete tasks at their own pace, where they can slow down and speed up based on their grasp of the concept and their own context. Okay, and learning asynchronously can help learners retain information more successfully. They can even create a more personalized approach to their learning that works best for all of them. Okay. And finally, it's also skills-based and projects-based. And students can develop their higher order thinking skills during asynchronous tasks by integrating and synthesizing information from a wide array of sources in order to connect ideas. So we see here the advantages of asynchronous online learning sometimes outweigh or far outweigh the advantages of synchronous engagements. But of course, that's a personal take on the matter. You might want to check the literature or try out for yourselves which one works best for you, because we have to consider a lot of factors, a lot of contextual factors. But in my case, I am pro asynchronous online learning most of the time because to me, it does work. Okay. And what have I tried doing as my asynchronous online learning tools and engagements? There are a lot of engagements to choose from. There are a lot of platforms to choose from. So you have Facebook, even text messaging, even television stations for over-the-air educational programs. And I think this is what the Department of Education here in the Philippines is doing to reach students living in far-flung areas. Could also be through videos, pre-recorded video lessons, or even webinars such as this. We can provide the recording, send the link to the students, and then access the recorded version at their most convenient time. Alternatives to recorded lectures are dynamic and unpredictable, and students can research a certain idea to bring back to the synchronous class time. And here, alternative to the videos that we record would be the YouTube videos available. We just have to choose the best ones. All right. We can also use a lot of animations. There are also free online courses available, which you can share with your students. Email is part of asynchronous online learning tool and engagement. Blogs as well. Reading and writing assignments, research projects, student presentations, individual group projects, online forums and discussion boards, video demonstrations, group projects, quizzes and games for prizes, and content modules or weekly packages of content, either digital or not. In other words, there is a plethora, there is an abundance of asynchronous online learning tools and engagements we can pick from. But notice how many times I used the term engagements in the earlier slides, in the previous slides. I have used engagements in my previous slides a couple of times because I believe that merely digitizing the curriculum and a direct copy of a face-to-face classroom using online tools will certainly fail. I believe that online teaching and learning should not maintain the same teaching strategies, the same activities, and outcomes from face-to-face learning. Indeed, there is no proxy for engagement. And this is the reason why we need to design not just lessons, but engagements. May I reiterate that? There is a reason for us to design not just lessons, but engagements. Now, you might want to ask, what is the difference between activities, for example, and engagements. At the most basic level, we think that activity is without engagement. No? It's like yelling through a megaphone while wearing ear defenders. You're getting the message out there, but there is no interaction at all with the people you are yelling at. Therefore, rather than creating asynchronous activities, let us design asynchronous online learning engagements. So I'm coming from that perspective that activities are not engagements, and that in asynchronous online teaching and learning, it is engagements that we should opt for. Zach Groeschel believes that while it works much better for the learning context that we're in at the moment, we probably shouldn't prescribe 100% synchronous format for an online course. In fact, if you look at this model, there is a preponderance, there is a greater percentage of asynchronous learning. According to him, there should be a higher percentage of asynchronous learning in an online course. And students can benefit from a synchronous dialogue session via conference call once in a while, if only to reduce the feeling of isolation between peers and instructors. And I subscribe to that idea. I subscribe to that paradigm. Zach Groeschel presents her own views about when to use synchronous and asynchronous learning as a graphic, as shown here. And you'll also realize that probably what we have been doing at this point is contrary to what Zach Groeschel is saying. So this also made me reflect, as regards the model that we follow in the university. As it is, I said earlier, we follow the combination of asynchronous and synchronous schedules in terms of schedules, but not in terms of engagements. So let me clarify that, not in terms of engagements. Because in my class, even if we meet asynchronously once a week and then synchronously once a week, so in the same week, I still give my students more asynchronous engagements because I subscribe to this paradigm. I subscribe to this model. Zach Groeschel is saying that while we may have to continue this physical distancing for some time, when teachers design well-structured courses that enable students to ask questions, engage in discussions, receive and give feedback, and actively participate in class activities, we bring our learning communities closer together, making the learners more engaged. All right? And Lisa Forbes says that asynchronous online teaching holds the highest level of difficulty. We might have this misconception that asynchronous online learning is much easier than synchronous sessions. Lisa K. Forbes is saying asynchronous online teaching holds the highest level of difficulty. And why is that so? Why is it not easy to do asynchronous online teaching and learning? First, we have to make asynchronous online teaching and learning as human as possible. And one of the speakers mentioned earlier, it appears that in online learning, there's lack of human touch. And it's also the very reason why it's very difficult to create asynchronous online learning engagements. Okay. Those in the humanities, like ourselves, face some particular challenges, creating the virtual classroom environments that foster the deep and often intimate discussions that promote trust and learning. And how do we become human when we do not see and hear our students both in asynchronous and synchronous meetings? They are on mute most of the time. and they are hidden most of the time. So how do we make our engagements as human as possible? Stephen Hoffman is saying that we have to make the learning space as human as possible, even, even with these constraints, given these constraints. And in general, he's saying that teaching the humanities online is challenging in that many of us tend to think of ourselves and our subjects as not being technology oriented. Actually, you look at the profile of teachers from the humanities division, you'll find out that there are more who are technologically unoriented at the moment, right? Not disoriented, but unoriented, if that word does exist. So while the digital environment seems sterile and distant, in some ways, Hoffman is saying that the humanities heavy skills of reading and visual analysis are such vital tools for preparing our students. And those kinds of sources really lend themselves to being digitally available. One of our speakers sometime a month ago, Dr. Rebecca Barrett Fox, says that the key to leading productive online humanities conversation is this: how do we make asynchronous engagements as human as possible? Dr. Fox says it's to ask good questions, just like in a face-to-face classroom. Through discussion board conversations, and probably the hardest part of online teaching, she said, she actually thinks that humanities professors have some advantage here because our content so often opens itself for debate in a way that, for example, the natural sciences and mathematics do not. So the best questions, therefore, that we ask in asynchronous online teaching and learning would invite the particular students in our class to bring their particular lives, their understanding experiences to the classroom. And let me show you some examples. These are not perfect examples, but at least in my case, they worked. I'm in the stage of experimenting. Every day to me is an experiment. So I'm trying to find out whether I can still better these engagements that I give my students. And apologies if the texts are quite small. But here we have some examples of engagements. So let's say the first one says, refer to the article, the origin and the origin of speech by Charles Hackett, and to the materials found below when you respond to the question, do animals have a language? Why or why not? I'm teaching language, culture, and society this term, and this is one of the topics we delved into. And I gave these to my students this asynchronous online learning engagement. And the response was lovely. The response was overwhelming. The other activity, engagement rather, that I tried is listen to Professor Jurgen as he incessantly talks about the history of English. Afterwards, respond to this talking point. Does English have a rich history? And what does it mean to you as an ESL speaker and as an ESL teacher, right? The other example I'd like to share is this. I gave them the article Conversational Ball Games, and I asked them to respond to this question. How does the article explicate the relationship or the interplay between language and culture? But these are all individual asynchronous online learning activities. But I also created a lot of, yes, sorry.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you, but we will just give you a few more minutes to wrap up your lecture.
Maybe 5 minutes. Will that be fine?
Okay, okay.
All right. Okay. Ang bilis naman.
Thank you, Doc.
Okay. Ang bilis naman. All right. So let's see if I can cover everything in 5 minutes. All right. And then I have here a discussion topic, which the students did in groups. I also gave them this engagement, 1-2-2-1 engagement, where one would initiate a discussion about a certain topic and then comment on 2 posts, respond to 2 comments, and write 1 realization or new information. And I'm also experimenting on doing this activity engagement called Mission Possible. It says there, the first mission is to do linking in, and this is a learner and material engagement. The next mission, because they need to finish the first mission first before proceeding to the next. The next one is YouTubing, and they will just be watching a video, listen to it, and it is a learner and material engagement. Before they proceed to mission 3, they should have accomplished mission 2, and mission 3 is about filling in the blanks, which is a pair work, and it's a learner and another learner engagement. Then mission 4 is reading on, which is learner and more learners engagement. And finally, the pre-ultimate mission, which is mission 5, is a reflective activity where the students or the learners will engage with him or herself. All right. I don't have the luxury of time to discuss how I'll do this or how I did the other activities, but I'll be happy to share this with you in some other occasions. And what do my students have to say? I need not read their comments, but you can surmise that all positive feedback, but with some suggestions or recommendations. All right, with some suggestions and recommendations from the students. So it's important that I get feedback from them. So I need not discuss this anymore. Just to show you how my students feel about our asynchronous learning engagements. And I learned this philosophy from Laura M. Krull, that in doing asynchronous online learning, we must have 3 goals. One is to facilitate student learning while minimizing anxiety connected to the course, maintain student and student instructor and student interactions, and also maintain consistency. And to achieve the first goal, I would switch to an asynchronous format using our institution's LMS, which enabled more self-paced learning and then created flexibility for student engagement. And then knowing the importance of consistency and clear organization, I kept deadlines for weekly assessments such as quizzes and forum posts, and I communicated deadlines each week via email and via the course syllabus. And I granted a lot of extension when students asked, frequently reminding them of this possibility. And to maintain interactions, I created structured discussion forums. And to maintain consistency, I kept all of my planned assignments, but I changed due dates and modified the requirements several times. Okay. Asynchronous online learning engagements is an option for us, particularly in the Philippines, because we encounter a lot of connectivity issues. And the news would say that the Philippines rank very low in terms of speed test. I do not have to explain that further. And thus, asynchronous online learning engagements would help address that problem of limited internet connectivity. This is one of the reasons also why some schools opted for the use of modules. And this module is a self-learning tool, and the learners have to do this on their own, whether there's internet or none. You can check the survey of the Department of Education, and it says that a lot of our learners from the public school sector would opt for modular approach. But I don't have the luxury of time to discuss that now, and it's not even the major coverage of this presentation. Chrysler, just give me 2 more minutes. All right. And in asynchronous online learning, presence is key, okay, to make it as human as possible. And how do we make our presence felt in asynchronous lessons or engagements? There should be periodic emails, a lot of announcements, it could also be virtual office hours. And of course, we have to make ourselves available. And Stephen Hoffman is saying that presence is any technique that continues, okay, to insert the presence of the instructor in the course. So we really have to make our presence felt. It doesn't mean that if it is a synchronous lesson, you'll be out there doing your grocery or laundry. All right. We also have to be there because our students await our presence. Okay. So presence is really key. And asynchronous online learning reduces this so-called transactional distance. And the distance is not actually physical distance, not spatial distance, but transactional distance. And we can reduce or minimize this transactional distance through asynchronous online learning. All right. Some principles doing asynchronous engagements. One, the amount should just be right. Don't anything that is too much is bad. So don't overwhelm your students with a lot of asynchronous engagements. Otherwise, you'll bore them to death. It is not always you. You don't have to record yourself for 3 hours and then upload it and then let your student watch. My God, your students will die because of boredom. Teach bite size. So teach less, but students learn more. Write good prompts and talking points. Make your presence felt. Use better terminologies. Do not say activities, instead use engagements. Do not say discussion, instead use conversations, and a whole lot more. Give your students and yourselves time to breathe. If you feel that they are exhausted, slow down, please, and don't make asynchronous sessions a bad form of escapism. So what lies ahead? We're now done with the pre-pandemic and we're nearly done with the peri-pandemic. We're moving on to the post-pandemic where we have to create our next or our emerging new normal. Will it be flipped classroom? Will it be high flex or hybrid? Will it be purely asynchronous? I don't know. I don't have the ready answer to that question. But what I know is that it will be a lot better than what we do at this point. All right? Because we really have to traverse the different phases of higher education response to COVID-19. We should be here at the fourth phase, which is 2021 and beyond. All right? There is no use going back. We cannot turn back the hands of time. We just have to move forward. And 2021 and beyond is the fourth phase where we have to do that. I'm almost done, Chrysler. I don't go for the Zoomification or panoptoing of education. I know these are very useful platforms, but to rely on Zoom or to rely on panopto would result in failure. So rather than simply accepting the Zoomification or panoptoing of education, I know it is a temporary solution that could suffice until it's safe to return to the classroom, but we can still think of other better options using these as well as our platforms. All right. As this framework would show that in online learning, asynchronous learning is preferred. All right. More often than synchronous engagements. And to end, I'd like to say that neither life nor learning should be postponed. It is not a question of which comes first, Maslow or Bloom. I believe that we can all Maslow and Bloom at the same time. And through education, through learning, we can rise above the COVID-19 challenges. And by making ELTL robust, we English teachers can continue teaching with language as our medium and hope as our message. So what will it take to a pandemic-proof ELTL? Okay, the moment to pandemic-proof proofing ELTL is now, as the story of this pandemic is far from over. And the pandemic has brought out the worst and the best in ELTL. And when the next pandemic strikes, we all look back on this moment as an opportunity we seize to ensure that the millions of learners out there have also braved the test of these unprecedented times. And asynchronous online teaching and learning engagements may be a key to pandemic-proofing English language teaching and learning. We need to evolve. The virus continues to evolve, and so must we. We just have to wear a different pair of eyeglasses at this point to look at things differently. Thank you very much, and apologies for the overtime. Thank you for your very kind listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bernardo, for such an insightful lecture and for the beautiful reminder on life and learning. Despite the time constraint, we learned a lot, and surely we will be able to use this to enrich our asynchronous engagements. All right, so let us move on and let us get to know our last speaker for today. Our last speaker is a full-time faculty member of University of Santo Tomas, teaching English for 14 years now. She obtained her degrees, Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English, Master in English, and Juris Doctor from the same university. After passing the bar examination, she decided to resume her graduate studies in the PhD English Language Studies program while teaching in the academe and engaging in legal practice. She has also delivered lectures in English language teaching and learning, social media ethics, bar English, and English for future lawyers, among others. She is a licensed professional teacher, a licensed real estate broker, a textbook writer in English, a member of various academic and legal organizations, a bar examination coach and mentor, a notary public, and a lawyer. May I give the virtual floor now to Attorney Celine Ann S. Lanes.
Pleasant afternoon to everybody. Are you with me? If you are with me, kindly please click that raise hand button. If you are still with me, if you are still with us, kindly please click that raise hand button. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm seeing some hands up. What about the rest? Are you still with me? All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. And good day to all of you. And once again, thank you for the invitation. The last topic for this afternoon is on pandemic proofing English language teaching and learning synchronous task engagements. And for the next 30 minutes, allow me to share with you some of the input and experiences, some tools for English language teaching and learning, and some samples of authentic synchronous class engagements. So to begin, we answer the question, what are synchronous classes? Synchronous classes are online courses that are conducted in real time. Here, the instructor and the students are together in one session, in the same session, which will begin and typically end at a fixed time. Synchronous courses are conducted in a live learning environment where a platform is created for students and instructors to interact in the same session together. With a shift from face-to-face classes to online learning, the use of information and communications technology, or ICT, has now become indispensable. Although there are a lot of challenges and concerns, we as language teachers should acknowledge that there's so much that we can do to make technology use more effective and more enjoyable for our students amid the pandemic. So synchronous classes may be made possible through what we call as VRI classrooms, and this stands for virtual, interactive, real-time, and instructor-led classroom. Coined by Francis Susi and Foster in 2013, a VRI classroom describes a pedagogical technique that uses internet technology to deliver a simulated face-to-face classroom experience. The VRI is a teaching and learning experience that is led by an instructor that takes place in an online space that's over the internet, where all students participate in the experience at the same time, and where the students and the experience involves a two-way experience and communication between and among the students and the instructor, or the instructor to the students. The very technology, like Zoom and Google Meet, also allows the instructor to mimic a number of pedagogical approaches that they might use in face-to-face classrooms, such as breakout rooms and pause or share screen button. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Yes, yes,
Thank you,
yes.
thank you. Or
Yes.
we can also have whiteboardings in Google Meet. So you might also want to activate your Google Meet extensions so you can further enjoy holding synchronous classes with emojis, games, and more. And there are a lot more out there too. We have Microsoft Teams, we have Skype, Cisco WebEx, and by the way, that's the platform used in the paper of Francis Husi and Rouhani. So in the study of, again, Francis Kusi and Rouhani in 2019, it was revealed that a synchronous course delivered using VRI technology is an effective synchronous learning environment. And here, this provides the same level of student performance outcomes as face-to-face learning. So for the next few slides, allow me to share with you some of the tools and some of the synchronous task engagements that can be used for your synchronous classes held in a virtual, interactive, real-time, and instructor-led classroom. And all of these may be used for your pre-teaching learning episodes, actual teaching learning episodes, and post-teaching learning episodes. But before anything else, I'd like to present to you first some house rules that you can use for your classes. Zoom session house rules. First, please keep your microphones muted unless you want to recite. Be mindful of your background noise and feedback. Second, switch from speaker view to gallery view or vice versa as desired. Third, if you want to recite, raise your hand or wave. Fourth, use the thumbs up, heart, or applause icons to express agreement when muted. Next, when working with documents, please display and adjust both the Zoom window and the document window on your computer because we will be working with both. Next, if you have questions, you may send a chat message. And lastly, this Zoom session is recorded, and in compliance with all the existing laws, your continued attendance or participation is deemed your agreement to the recording. There are probably other guidelines that you can think of too, and you can have that negotiation with your students. Now, let's go to the tools. Using Mentimeter this time, first is the use of Mentimeter. What comes to mind when you hear the word synchronous classes? I asked my students to use Mentimeter, and I wanted to hear their thoughts about online learning or about synchronous classes. And they responded that, okay, we have Zoom, internet, interactive session, guided discussion, online classes, active participation, and then lectures, among many others. But there's one item here that caught my attention, and that is learning better. So I do hope that you would also be sharing the same idea about synchronous classes, that it could also allow you to learn better. And Mentimeter as a tool could provide other activities or engagements, if I may say, such as multiple choice, word cloud, open-ended, skills, ranking, Q&A, select answer, type answer, heading, paragraph, and a whole lot more. So I also asked my students through Padlet what they think is the best tool for online learning. And these are their responses. Okay, these are your answers. I see Google Doc, I see Canva, Google Drive. There you go. And at this point, okay, these are your answers. Invite you to try Padlet as how my students did also in this example. Here, I asked them to think of an advocacy topic that they would like to campaign for. And here, answers came popping in. We have environment, gender equality, fighting climate change, mental health equality, PWDs, health, child hunger, healthcare, water, and a whole lot more. So at this point, I'd like to invite you to try out Padlet by using this QR code or by clicking the link that you can find in the chat box. May I request our moderators, Ms. Kriza and Sir Bam, to please upload the link. And here is what I'd like you to do. Based on this pedagogy wheel, which by the way is a tool that can show us the various platforms for online learning that we English language teachers may consider. First would be the graduate attributes and capabilities. Next would be the Bloom's taxonomy. And we have here remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and then creating. And we also have here technology enhancement tools such as these Notepad, Keynote, multi-quiz, quick graph, and we have also WhatsApp, file FB Messenger, and a whole lot more. And the last item there is the SAM-R model. So at this point, okay, I'm interested to invite you. I'd like to invite all of you to type in the URL, the padlet.com, and as posted in here or in the QR code. And I'd like to hear insights from you. So, do you have the Padlet link there? May I see a show of hands if you can access the Padlet link or if you can access the QR code? May I see a show of hands? Okay. To those who were able to access the QR code and the Padlet link, kindly raise your hands. And to those who were able to successfully upload or publish a photo, kindly raise your hand. Are you there? Are you there? So if you're able to successfully open it, you get to see also the responses of your classmates here in this webinar. You get to see also the responses of those who are watching with us right now. So let's take a look at some of the answers. Let me just share my screen. And here we have here Moodle, Google Classroom, and as you can see, we have here real time responses. And you can do this also for your classes. Now we move forward to the next. So here I mentioned about the SAM-R model, and we speak about substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. With this kind of model, we have to realize that times are really changing and language teaching is ever evolving. So from teaching without technology, remember pre-pandemic times when we would ask our students to get a paper, to get a pen, and to write an essay, and to make them submit a handwritten essay. But now that's probably not possible. So what we can do is to make use of these tools to have all of these learning objectives met and attained. So this time, we now ask them to type an essay in MS Word. This time, we can also allow them to use the built-in functions for augmentation. And here are the enhancement functions of a SAM-R model. But now we move to modification, where you can ask your students now to type in a Google Doc and to invite collaborators in the Google Doc for the revision task, for other tools like adding images, adding layout, adding hyperlinks, and later on towards the end, we're able to ask our students to publish, okay, in a blog, create a podcast, or upload in social media. So we use technology, and there's transformation from something that's as simple as an essay submitted in discussion boards probably, or essay submitted in your submission bins. Now we have here now social involvement when they now publish publicly. So I'd like to introduce to you G Suite. We have Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, Google Forms, Google Drawings, and Google Jamboard that can facilitate collaborative writing in an English language classroom. So I asked my students to read a journal titled English Language Teaching During the Times of COVID-19, Challenges and Opportunities, a brief study of GFP students in Muscat College. And this was for an asynchronous session. However, for me, I wanted to hear and I wanted to see their insights and I wanted to see how they did it real time. So I asked them to open a Google Doc. I created the Google Doc where all of my students are there. And then I asked them to type their key takeaways in that Google document. I was there. I was working likewise with them. I saw them type. I saw them put comments, edit, revise the work. And because of lack of material time, they had the luxury now to work on all of these tasks after our synchronous session. So because I own the file, I have now the control, so I can see who worked on the document, who added input, and even the time frame that they had that engagement. So notice that I'd have students who did the work in regular class hours, some even late at night, and some even at wee hours in the morning. So this is one way that you can do to ensure that every member in the group is actually working together with the rest. Another thing that you can do with Google Doc is to engage in a gamified activity for this time for grade schoolers, for younger learners. And here, now to alphabetize the words. Learners were asked to alphabetize the words and they had it as if they were playing against the other team. So the first group to complete, of course, wins the game. So I'd like you Another activity that you can do is to ask them to use
Using the
annotate
annotate
tools
button, you can just
by
draw
drawing a line
connecting the word to its
and
meaning.
connecting the
Is
word
ready,
to its
set,
meaning.
go.
So you see that there is, of course, a student engagement here. There are student engagements here. Now, if you also want this to be gamified, you can use Google Slides and create one slide per group and ask the group to work on it simultaneously. Okay. Now, another thing that you can do is to create a Google Sheet. So, if there are students who are not comfortable unmuting themselves for some recitations, engagements, or if nobody seems to be answering your question, you can open up a Google Sheet and you can ask them to create a sentence to form a word, okay, and that corresponds to their class number. Or if there are specific questions that you have for college students, that can also allot, okay, a cell for them where they can put their answers. In that way, you get to see who's with you in that synchronous session. Now, here's another example. I have here Trees by Joyce Kilmer, again for younger learners, grade schoolers, and or probably high schoolers. So one activity that you can do here for Google Document is to ask them to rearrange the lines so that they can fix the poem. Here, this is again another collaborative teaching that you can do, and then here you will now allow your students to be engaged as if they are really, together with their classmates, albeit virtually. Another thing that they can do is to also write sentences and to type sentences rather, and to upload pictures and photos in cells here in Google Sheets. All right. So in Google Slides, you can also ask your students to publish their posters or their artwork. In the past, okay, probably we would just be enjoying the submission button in our LMS. But when students submit these works, they would be doing so for our own eyes only. But if you make use of Google Slides, where they can all put in information according to their class number 1 to 22 in this case, here, class numbers, 1 to 36 in this case, okay, everyone gets to see the work, and then everyone can actually comment, can give points for improvement, recommendations, or some commendations. So here we now have synchronous online learning that could promote, okay, what we call as with advanced technology, we can increase students of connection, feeling of connection to instructors and to students. So now we go to our presentation tools. So there are a lot out there like PowerPoint, Render Forest, Google Slides, Canva, and then Prezi. And my favorite is PowerPoint. So you can also play this guess the picture game as an icebreaker before you start with your session. Let's try this. In the chat box, I'd like you to type and guess who this person is. If you know the answer, kindly type your answer. Okay? No idea yet? Okay, what about this? Do you know who this person is? Kindly type in the chat box if you know the answer. How about this? Let's have more clues. If you know the answer, kindly type in the chat box. Okay? Do you know the answer? Kindly type in the chat box. Okay? All right. So until now, the person gets what revealed. And here, of course, we have William Shakespeare. So this is through PowerPoint. Now, of course, you can also have your typical lecture slides. So here's an authentic slide. Our topic for today, and that's communication and globalization. So English is the lingua franca. You can also use GIFs, moving images for your slides. And then your traditional tables or your notes, your words, your phrases, and then your sentences. And then our topic. Let's have another. Tell me what is unique to another this time you can make your students but not annotate in the Philippine setting. Yes, that's correct. And this is common to what country? Can you type in the chat box? This is common to what country? Can you type in the chat box? Take a look at all of those students putting in annotations, boxes. There's really student engagement here. What about this one? When you make them now, so match the words that have similar meanings. Okay, this time draw a line. All right, good job. Okay, all right. What about aubergine? What's that? That's eggplant. As you can see, there's what maximum student engagement that's being Blue is restroom, addressed Q here. Is line, rubbish is garbage, and lorry is truck. Okay, now what about this one? So you can also have other markings like stamps. Put a star on the word which is new to you. All right. So we have here anti-clockwise, ice lolly, kit, dustman, nil, sellotape, pudding, drawing pin. And you can also have kinesthetic learning engagements like this. Because you know very well already speaking and writing, and some of you might not know yet signing, okay? I'll teach you the alphabet. A, this is A, B, C. All right. Now we go to the next thing that you can do, because you can also engage them into some gamified activities. That's also a simulation of real life games like this. Let's do fast talk. Okay, Dean, musicals or action movies?
Action movies.
Ma'am Krisa?
Musicals.
Sir Nico?
Action movies.
Sir Bam?
Musicals.
Sir Leroy?
Musicals.
Game. It's hep hep hooray. I'm going to give you traits, concepts, and words. And if you think the word, okay, is related to a woman, you say, by the way,
Woman.
this is an actual recording of
And if
a
the
class
trait
session
is
in
for
my
a
PhD
man,
class.
you say
under
man.
Dean Marilu Madrunyo.
Okay, ready?
And I have here my
Woman,
PhD
and then man.
So as a
flash
ELS
a word,
classmate, you have to do your action. Woman or man. Okay, ready? Here's the first word. Ready? Go.
Woman.
Man.
Next.
Man.
Man.
Woman.
So you can also engage your
Next.
learners into some movements so that there's going to be
Woman.
no
Woman.
monotony in any synchronous class engagement.
Man.
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 And then here's the last.
Woman.
Man.
All right. You can also insert videos in your lectures.
Oh, I know it's awful,
Most
isn't it?
especially if there's
you on about,
pronunciation as a
I'm going to
topic.
get it sorted. Excuse me, but we have culture up here too. Hey, he doesn't seem to be looking in your direction.
And you can also ask your
Oh.
students to present readings or reports creatively and innovatively like this.
They are all physical therapists deployed in different parts of Europe, and they were asked to immerse themselves in their respective countries' cultures, especially in the healthcare sector. The goal of this season is to impart knowledge on their other teammates and our viewers as well as to what it is like to practice physical therapy in the countries they were deployed in. Are you guys ready? We're ready! Woo!
And did you know that you can also get PowerPoints for Family Feud? PowerPoint templates for Family Feud and PowerPoint templates for Deal or No Deal. So how do students perceive these kinds of online interactions? According to Falun, Hrastinsky, Strang, Watts, cited in Francis Susi and Rouhani in 2019, due to instant feedback and interaction with peers and instructors, students perceive synchronous online interactions positively, thereby engagement in an online learning environment. Another tool that you can use is Kahoot for your gamified lectures. Okay, let's begin. Ready? The game starts now. This is on week 1 lessons. I remember giving you the PDF file. I hope that you read the assignment. Question number 1, true or false? The more you communicate, the better your communication will be is a myth. True or false? I now see 23 answers, 26. Okay, ready? 13, 12. Okay, so here we have 14 students who got the correct answer. Why is All this? right, so
Um,
here I asked my students to read PDF file about essentials on communication during an asynchronous session. And for me to test their knowledge about what they're reading, I gave a Kahoot game and at the same time had some reinforcements as the item flashed in here. So this one also allows Alina, Prince, and Bea.
competitive
Kindly enable your video camera so we can
experiences, gaming
recognize you.
experiences.
So he recognized now our top 5 scorers in every item here. Now, another tool that you can use for your lecture discussions is the
Of essay
whiteboard.
has
3 parts. Undoubtedly, we have here the introduction and we have here the body and we have here the conclusion. All right. And another tool that you
of
can use is Wiser. It has a lot of activities like open question, multiple choice, blanks, fill in an image. But my most favorite is the voice recorder option. So here I ask my students this question: what do you like most about online learning? If you want to answer this, you can also use the QR code if you want to answer, and just hit on that voice button.
May I ask who's in right now? Are you all there?
So here I have all of my students now in on screen. I asked them to get their second device so that they can record their answer to the question, and then they would be uploading that recording in Wiser and would be playing now the responses during the synchronous session. And this way we also address inclusivity concerns, those who feel shy to unmute themselves or to open their cameras. Okay, and then what else do we have here? You can also use a randomizer, Charlize. And this shows that impromptu speech engagements like this is also possible.
Also, that legacy is not something you live with, it's what you leave people with. And with that, I want people to remember me as a person who is resilient, generous, and
Here,
kind.
3 cameras are on. One for the impromptu speaker, another for the peer evaluator, and another for the timekeeper. So I asked my students what they think about the activity. And here, since we started last August, I had 443 responses. Here, we have 46.3% who said either way as the objectives will still be met. 5% okay, they would say, okay, we go for online. And 48.8% we go for face-to-face. So here are the reasons why. I prefer it online because I don't have to face a large crowd. I won't really get nervous on online classes. Less awkward because you will only see a few faces of people unlike in face to face. I think online will work best for the impromptu speech because I find it easier when I see less eyes looking at me while I'm answering. There is less pressure when delivering an impromptu speech online, and it was more efficient in blocking out the audience, non participants during speech deliveries. The tools employed, such as the random question generator, also worked well. Online platform would lessen the stage fright since you can do it at the location you're comfortable with. And I think it is better online since I'm not distracted by the audience and I was able to concentrate more on what I'm about to say. Now, here are the responses of those who prefer face to face. Even though an impromptu speech can be done online, the anxiety of encountering connectivity issues while speaking adds to the nervousness that we already feel for having to speak in the first place. I think you're challenged to best in face-to-face platform. There will be people who will show their support to you and cheer you while delivering your speech. And for me, it is also important to see hand gestures, posture, and the connection between the speaker and the audience. But there are also students who said, okay, they prefer both platforms. So either way, okay, it's fine with me because the objectives will still be met. I think that both platforms would work for impromptu speech delivery because I experienced delivering a speech on both and there wasn't any problem with both of them. They have the same concept. Thus, I believe that they are both good platforms. I think that both platforms can be used because it is the content and delivery of the speech that matters the most. I think both will still work best as long as there are no issues in terms of connectivity and device. But delivery wise, speech can still be given across audience and in platforms. Now we go for the assessments. You can use Kahoot, Mentimeter, Socrative, Poll Everywhere, Quizlet, and Quizzes. And you can also make use of Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, and then Pear Deck for Google Slides. While all of these activities seem so engaging and promising, the success will largely depend upon the teacher's facilities and technological skills, as well as the learner's resources and abilities. So before indulging in any of these activities, you may want to evaluate your context first, then your learners, so you can calibrate all of your teaching methodologies, tools, and assessments. So according to Johns, the first step in designing any language course is students' needs analysis. So here are some of the questions that you can ask. Okay, connectivity mode, describe your internet connection, and you can also ask them to take a speed test. So here you can also ask them the gadgets, the tools that they have, and then all of those that they can use for online learning. You can also ask how many members are with them, because the speed will also be affected here. And you can also ask if they have a separate room that they can hold online classes, so that you can check if they will be distracted or they can keep their focus or not. So, with reference to online learning, students must be aware about the environment in which they learn a language. And students' comfort with synchronous and asynchronous e-language learning environments is important, because the language learning styles and strategies, as well teaching methods that work well in one paradigm, may not be fruitful in the other. So, down to the last few slides, think about what your students can do with what they have, and also as teachers, what you can do with what you have. Think about whether he can resort to asynchronous activities under the green and the yellow zone, or synchronous activities under the blue and the red zone. Think about whether he can have online readings per se, Canvas discussions, Canvas assignments, among others, for low immediacy and low bandwidth engagements, or pre-recorded audio, short videos, narrated slides, pre-recorded lectures for your asynchronous and high bandwidth engagements. Or we can shift to synchronous sessions, where you can have live stream lectures, proctored exams, and Zoom office hours for high bandwidth, high immediacy. And here you can also have low bandwidth and high immediacy, such as collaborative documents, Canvas, quiz, and group chat and messaging. And these are the tasks that we can do: build community and relationships, lead interactive modeling sessions, differentiate instruction for small groups, personalize construction and provide one-on-one coaching, guide practice and application, facilitate real-time conversations, foster collaboration among students, and real-time feedback on work in progress. So as I now end my presentation, with COVID cases increasing, mask wearing and social distancing measures still in force, children and teens are still not allowed to go out. With this, the online mode of learning, or probably blended learning, may be the only viable answer. As language teachers, we should then review the curriculum and learning outcomes, course plans, teaching methodologies and activities, assessment tools for, of, and in learning. And despite the fact that there are inequalities in online learning, such as lack of computers, internet connection problems, and the non-suitable learning environment, online education in the emergency circumstances like what we have right now offers new, sustainable, and effective learning actions. So thus, a systematic approach in investing, planning, and delivering online learning is an absolute must. So we can all claim that even though schools have physically closed, learning has not ended. Thank you so much and have a great day. These are my references.
Thank you so much, Attorney Celine, for that very engaging presentation. We really appreciate your lecture for today's webinar. Once again, we are very grateful for such an informative discussion from our two speakers. We will surely apply this task in our asynchronous and asynchronous classes now that especially we are migrating to new academic settings. Thank you so much. And now it's time for our Q&A segment. So let us begin our Q&A. So this question is for Dr. Andrew from Carlo Jan Carolino. How can I motivate my students to ask questions? I believe that questioning is an essential tool in building interaction or engagement in the class. When I tell them to ask questions about our topic in our group chat, only 2 or 3 ask during our schedule.
I find the question valid, and the question to address that question, it's very difficult to encourage students to ask questions, especially if you do not know whether they're really there or not, because they're most of the time hiding and most of the time are muted or on mute mode. But when they're really there in front of their laptops or their computers and you're doing a synchronous session, the discussion forum and the chat box are open spaces, are safe spaces, which encourage a lot of questions from the students. I would suggest that you use these platforms, the chat box and the discussion forums, to encourage or elicit a lot of questions from our students. In case you do not have the means such as these, group emails would be an alternative where you can respond to everyone through group emails. So that would also help encourage participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question from Rochelle de los Reyes. This question was sent via the Google form prior to the event. A lot of learners today are so immersed in social media that it now greatly affects their use of the language. As language educators, how can we use this as our advantage? So anyone from our second batch of speakers can answer this question.
I leave it all up to Celine to answer that question.
Okay, in one of the outputs for my PERPCOM classes, purposive communication classes, I would ask my students to think of an advocacy topic that they'd like to promote. And in some instances, I just wish I could share with you some of the links that they created. They put up Facebook web pages to promote and to campaign for the topic that they have, such as mental health, PWDs, environment care, and all of these sustainable development goals out there. And all of these would not only be for grading purposes, but for them to promote social transformation and positive change.
Right. Thank
If
you,
I may,
Christine. I
Chrysler,
guess
if I
Dr. Bernardo. Yes, yes.
when there was lockdown last year, and if students could hardly access the LMS Blackboard, for example, if they are stuck in far-flung provinces where there is low internet connectivity, what we did was to rely on social media platforms such as Facebook. So the students also did group discussions via Messenger and other social media platforms. So it worked for them, and these social media platforms are very helpful.
Thank you, Dr. Bernardo. So another question for Dr. Andrew from Lau Fabiani. Could you please share some tips to keep students contribute actively and equally in group projects during asynchronous learning?
Okay. Of course, group work should be more engaging, and it should not be a mere repetition of what they have done before. It should also be close to the students' hearts and close to the students' realities at the moment. For example, in my purposive communication class last term, what I did was to ask the students to discuss in groups communication in the midst of pandemic. I asked them to talk about how social distancing affected the way they communicate at home, how social distancing and how the pandemic in general affected the way they communicate with their loved ones and friends. And the response was lovely because the group activity, the group engagement I asked them to do is very close to what is happening at the moment. So that's one way to make group activities more engaging. I like somebody singing Chrysler.
Thank you,
I like.
Dr. Andrew. Thank you so much again. I know.
Time to go to church.
Okay. Chrysler, you're on mute. Chrysler.
Okay.
Sir Chrysler, you're on mute.
Yes. This question was already given earlier for the first batch of our speakers. I want to ask the perspective of our second batch of speakers just to wrap up the Q&A segment. How do we promote inclusivity on online classes? Let's start with Attorney Celine.
Okay, in my classes, as you can see, I use varied teaching methodologies, presentations, activities. I have games. So I even allow them to be very creative with their presentation. Someone even sing songs and showcase their talent for submissions. And for me, that's one step closer to making them enjoy learning despite what's happening and somehow see light despite our condition and our situation nowadays.
Thank you.
Should I answer the same question,
Dr.
Chrysler?
Andrew.
Okay.
Yes,
To
Dr. Andrew,
promote
yes.
inclusivity in the classroom, I think the basic tenet we need to follow is just to provide our students all possible access to education, all possible access to learning. For example, specific examples that would show access to education or to learning. Let's say we also reduced the number of formative assessments and we only elected high stakes assessments which consider the nature of online learning, because we know that we have a lot of students undergoing a lot of problems at the moment, not only internet connectivity problems, but other personal issues. And therefore, that's one way to accommodate them. Rubrics may also be personalized. For example, if you're asking your students to do video presentation, but they do not have any video equipment at all. So what you can do, like what I tried before, is simply to ask my students to create a PowerPoint with an audio, and I changed the rubric. I modified the rubric to accommodate that student. Other little ways of showing how we can render flexibility, which results in inclusivity, is that those who have internet connectivity, we also have a lot of, as I said, a lot of students experiencing that. We also have a lot of students battling against the after effects of the pandemic. And through the asynchronous engagements, they are still able to cope with the demands of their courses. And asynchronous online learning is one way of accommodating these types of learners who have difficulties or limitations at the moment. It's just providing everyone access, equal opportunities for them to participate in the different courses they're taking up at the moment. Thank you, Chrysler.
Thank you, Dr. Bernardo. Thank you, Attorney Celine. And unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for the Q&A segment. I hope that our participants learned so much from our two speakers this afternoon. Thank you so much, Attorney Celine and Dr. Bernardo.
Thank you too.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am Criza?
All right, so time really flies when we are enjoying and learning. However, we cannot accommodate all questions. Thus, we will proceed to the next part of our program, which is awarding of the certificates to our two speakers. Sir Chrysler?
So UST and WMFCU, this certificate of appreciation is awarded to Alejandro S. Bernardo, PhD, as a speaker in the webinar on strategic changes in language education during and post-COVID-19, held via Zoom on May 8, 2021 at 1 p.m. Jakarta time or 2 p.m. Manila time. Signed, Professor Dr. Michael Anthony C. Gasco, Dean of the USC Graduate School, and Professor Dr. Ami Suwandi, Director, Graduate School of Vidya Mandala Surabaya Catholic University. Same certificate is also given to Attorney Celine and S. Linas, MA. Thank you so much for attending our webinar.
Thank you too.
Once again, thank you to our speakers and thank you also to our participants who are still with us this afternoon. Now we have already reached the end of our webinar and we do hope that you learned a lot and you will bring or share the knowledge that you have acquired today in your respective institutions.
Before we end with the closing remarks, may we request everyone to turn on their cameras for our photo session. Please keep your smiles as we have multiple frames to capture. Ma'am Fiza, may we request you to capture us.
All right, let's begin. Everyone, please keep smiling. Okay, next frame. Please keep smiling, everyone. All right. And lastly, thank you very much, everyone. All right, so once again, certificates of participation will be sent via email to those who will answer the questionnaire or the evaluation form. May we now request Dr. Rachel Lintao, the program lead in UST Graduate School, English Language Studies Program, and the chair of Department of English for her closing remarks.
Thank you, Criza. To the respectable Dean of the UST Graduate School, Professor Dr. Michael Anthony C. Vasco, and the Director of the Graduate School of Vidya Mandala Surabaya Catholic University, Professor Dr. J.S. Ami Sowawandi, esteemed speakers, faculty, students, guests, good day. With the shared goal of providing quality education, the University of Santo Tomas and the Vidya Mandala Surabaya Catholic University are strong academic partners. Part of the realization of our MOA is this webinar. Dr. Hendra and I started planning for this event last January, and we are delighted that everything went well as planned. Many thanks to our resource speakers from the Vidya Mandala Surabaya Catholic University, Dr. Takim, Dr. Mina, and Dr. Hendra, and of course, our very own speakers from the University of Santo Tomas, Dr. Andrew and Attorney Celine. The brilliant inputs and practical strategies you provided our participants on how to navigate language instruction in this new normal are greatly appreciated. The keys to successful instructional leadership include resiliency, flexibility, and innovation with growth mindset are timely takeaways. Learning those creative techniques for collaborative activities, WriteLog as a device to promote independent learning, and the very helpful strategies that we can use during synchronous and asynchronous sessions is a gem. As language educators, we face different levels of challenges in this difficult season, but we can overcome some of these adversities by adapting to these strategic changes in the way we conduct our language classes. I would like to recognize the organizers of this event. A big shout out to the Team Indonesia, Dr. Hendra, Angela, Dia, Gayu, and Jessica, and to Team Philippines. So I'm with Chrysler and Kriza. To the rest of the participants, thank you for spending your Saturday afternoon with us. God bless and stay safe and well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rochelle, for your message. And on behalf of the University of Santo Tomas and Villa Magdala Surabaya Catholic University, we thank each and everyone for being with us this afternoon. And as we end our webinar, kindly check out the most awaited link posted in the chat box and answer the evaluation to get your e-certificate. We hope to see you again on our next webinar session. May we request also the organizers, speakers, and the dean and the head of USC and WMSCU to stay for another photo op in a separate break room. I know it's been a long day for us, but this has been Chrysler I. Fontanilla.
And Kriza Macy Balisong, reminding everyone to keep safe always and have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Till we meet again and more symposium to come. God bless us all.